This episode of Small Business Leaders Podcast is brought to you by Adams Lane Photography.
Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Small Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by the Legacy Podcast Studio in Kernersville, North Carolina. My name's Lamar Powell, and this is my lovely, wonderful co-host, Audra Adams.
Thank you, Lamar. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode. We are so excited to have David Campbell in the house. He is the owner of Fourth Figure, and we're going to get into what all that means. You're not going to want to miss it, so let's go. Welcome, David, to the table. We are so glad that you're here.
Thank you, Audra. It's so great to be here.
We have really done something with you that we don't normally do with our guests, and we kind of have had a pre-meeting.
That's right.
And been able to sit down and talk about some things because what you have to kind of say and what your business is so interesting, and we wanted a little more time with you before we started the cameras rolling. So thank you for coming in and schooling us. You're about to school everybody.
You're very welcome. Actually, if I remember correctly, I asked if I could meet with you before the
Yes.
podcast because I wanted you to experience what I was bringing.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is Fourth Figure and why?
So Fourth Figure is a leadership development company that I founded at the end of December as I retired from the corporate world. So I work with companies to help them understand how to become better leaders. So maybe they're missing some of their metrics. They have high attrition. They've got bad culture, low engagement. I help them really identify that root cause of what's going on inside their company, help them be able to see it, and then build a model to kind of elevate them from just the entry level type of management to understand leadership better, build a continuous improvement cycle.
So tell us more about where you're from and how you got to this place that you're at today so that we can really understand.
Yeah, that's and what we learned at the beginning too. You
Right.
started on the factory floor as an employee, and now you're coaching executives. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm actually an engineer by trade. Okay. So if you look at my career, I've worked for someone else for 33 years. So I started out of college, worked for Ford Motor Company, started at a 2 million square foot plant in Connersville, Indiana,
Whoa.
which was an amazing experience. But I worked in production as a night shift supervisor for 2 years. Yeah. And I look back on that position, and it was one of the positions that I really didn't enjoy while I was there, but it really helped me learn how to work with people.
In what way?
Well, when you're 23 years old and you're an engineer from outside of the state and you walk into a union facility and now you're on night shift and you're the boss, they have no reason to listen to you.
Yes.
And so you have to figure out, how do I start conversations with this workforce? How do I get them to actually do what they are supposed to do and maybe have a smile on their face while they're doing it? So it was quite a challenge for an engineer to come into that kind of environment.
And what has shifted your perspective? Because you didn't, from what I understand, you didn't stay in engineering
Right.
for all this time. Am I right, or did you?
I did not. So I actually haven't done engineering it's probably measured in decades now. So I worked in engineering after this production supervision. And then Susan and I moved to Texas, and I moved a design engineering group to Mexico, started a group there, and then did a couple different jobs in Mexico for 5 years. And then I raised my hand to move again, and we moved to Michigan for a year, where I was working in the quality side. So I was directly working with Ford Motor Company and their assembly plants. And then my boss called me into the office one day and said, "Hey, we have an opportunity in Indianapolis. Are you interested?" So we only spent a year in Michigan. And then we moved to Indianapolis, where I became the quality manager for a very large power steering plant. So I was no longer an engineer, but again, 2 million square feet, about 3,000 employees. And this was a UAW facility. So even more opportunity to work on your people skills, help people get motivated and be more than just a manager.
And was it difficult making that transition, like from the engineer standpoint to?
I think looking back, I see why I made the transition. And it wasn't actually that difficult for me because it makes more sense to kind of my natural behavior.
Okay.
The engineering side, I enjoyed making things, but at the end of the day, I really enjoyed making things that had an impact on other people. So the design piece and getting into the details was fun for a while.
Yeah.
But then quickly I realized I actually liked working with people a lot more than I liked working with.
Because they're kind of two different things. So
100%.
it's
Yeah.
interesting transition.
Yeah.
For sure.
So then I worked for Ford, and Ford was actually making that plant smaller. And so I made the decision to leave Ford, and it was Ford and Visteon at the time. And I went into the cycling industry. There was a local carbon fiber manufacturer of high-end bicycle wheels in Indianapolis that recruited me to come over there and run operations for them. And they were located about 4 blocks south of the Indianapolis Speedway,
Oh, yeah.
which was an amazing place to work, right? The race car
Yeah.
drivers were all athletes, so they would come down, ride bikes with us from time to time. So it was a great experience. And then I ultimately built them a larger facility, and then we got bought by a bigger company.
Wow. Okay. So that's Indianapolis. That's Michigan. That's Mexico. That's Texas. Why North Carolina?
Yeah, so North Carolina is kind of the reason. If you go farther into my story, why I ended up in North Carolina is really how I ended up in leadership and really diving into understanding how to be a better influencer and leader at the same time. Because actually, as I was running operations at Zip and SRAM, I built them a beautiful facility. I thought everything was going really well. I was having fun. If you asked me, I'd say I had made it. I was wearing shorts to work, wearing t-shirts, riding my bike all the time. And then one day I'd just come back from a very long ride in Tennessee. My boss shows up from Chicago, calls me into the office and says, "Hey, we're going to go a different direction." And I'm like, "Okay, where are we going?" He's like, "No, you're not coming with us."
Oh, no.
And so here I am. It's 2013. I'm in shock. I have 2 kids in high school. One of our daughters getting ready to go off to Seattle. We have a mortgage, and my whole world's falling apart.
Oh, wow.
So I spent 4 months looking for a job, also thinking that I am never going to allow myself to get into this position again. So once I found work in North Carolina,
Okay.
I started working on myself personally, and that's how I found Maxwell Leadership. And when I started working with Maxwell Leadership, I started learning more about how to actually be a better leader, how to be a better person, how to be more of an influence
Mm-hmm.
so that people start to become more productive, more engaged.
And did you find Maxwell on your own? How did that come about, and why did that resonate so much? Was it just because you were ready for it then?
I love that question, right? So when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. So
Nice.
my best friend from college had actually met John Maxwell in the 90s when he was just leaving his church and going out to start a company. And he gave me one of his books. So probably around the year 2000, I had his book in my possession and I had read it. It's a great book. It's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. It's one of his classics. I didn't think much about it then, but then once I got out of work, I actually got contacted. I don't know how, now I think about it. Someone from Maxwell Leadership called me and said, "Are you interested in this program? We have a leadership program we do every March and every August in Orlando, Florida. You come down for a week and we train you to be a speaker, a trainer, and a coach."
Okay.
And so Susan and I talked about it, and we're like, you know what? This kind of fits in with my narrative that I wanted to make sure I was always improving myself and never getting to the point where I would lose my job again. Or if I did lose my job, I'd be okay.
Right.
Right. Now that led me to this kind of a several year journey as I started working with Maxwell Leadership. Initially when I lost my job in 2013, I was very angry and hurt, and I didn't really understand what happened. And just recently, probably in the last 2 years, as I got more into really diving deep into what was driving me, and I started reflecting a lot more, it dawned on me that I had actually created the situation in Indianapolis. And the reason that I got let go was 100% mine.
Whoa.
And that's a tough pill to swallow. And I didn't swallow it in one day, because I started thinking about it and going, wait a second. Did I cause this?
Wow.
Did I get comfortable? Did I get complacent? Was I okay with good enough? And was I okay with the plateau? As I said earlier, I had made it, right? I was living the life. It was great.
I think this is such an important point
Yeah.
that you're making right now, to be honest enough about and looking inward, to learn some of that and figure it out. Because what happens is it makes you a better person in the long run once you see that and admit that. And to me, I'm looking at all these past things that you've been through,
Right.
and it's made you into what you are today. Yeah, and that's a great lesson right there.
And it's really what drives me now,
Yes.
because I want to help people have that aha moment before they have the uh-oh moment. Right.
That's very good.
Before they go, what's happening?
Yeah.
I want them to be able to see complacency in themselves,
Yeah.
and then also see it in their team. But then more than that, just to see it, I want to help them build tools and models and processes that keep things rolling so that they're always improving. And it's got to be on a daily basis. If you go back to when I was working at Ford, or even a little bit at Zip, when you thought about personal development, it was usually, hey, I'm going to take a class this year. And there's nothing wrong with
Right.
taking a class this year. But John Maxwell says nothing is going to change in your life until you change something that you do every day.
Yeah.
So really, change and continuous improvement comes down to that consistency of your daily behavior. And so many people don't see that value until it's too late. And so I want to help them see that before it's too late.
Now, when
Right.
you came to North Carolina, did you mention who you were working for here?
TE Connectivity.
Okay. And were you in a leadership position here at TE?
Yes. So I had several jobs here. So, I'm kind of that person that I love new challenges.
Yeah.
And I worked for TE for about 12 and a half years. But about every 3 years, I was raising my hand and saying, hey, what's next? So I came in under a continuous improvement role. And then I had the opportunity to take some of the things I learned in the cycling industry and bring some Industry 4.0 tools to the company. So for 3 years, I traveled the globe and taught and worked with teams on putting digital factory types of tools in place.
Okay.
And then someone said, Dave, you're the digital guy. And that caught me off guard. And I'm like, I'm not really the digital guy. I want you to get excited about having digital tools in your plants, but I'm not, and there's nothing wrong with IT, but I'm not the IT person.
Mm-hmm.
So I raised my hand again and said, I need to get into a business unit. So I left that job at still the same company and went and worked as the quality director for one of our business units. So we had 11 business units at TE. So I was the quality director. We had about 200 people on my team, several thousand. We had about 20 plants around the globe. So I worked in that role for 3 years. And then again, I went, hey, look at me.
So what I'm seeing, though, is throughout your career, the one constant is that you were in a position to kind of see where deficits or progression was within the group that you were leading.
Right.
To say, okay, this works. I needed this type of person and I didn't have that, or this person didn't seem motivated and I never could motivate them.
Right.
Like, so it seemed like you were just taking in this information that has all kind of converged and led to what we're about to talk about where you are now. Would that be?
Yeah. So if you look at the point in time, 2018, when I went to Maxwell Leadership and got certified the first time, I was working in sensors and I came back and I had 6 direct reports, and I started going, well, maybe I'll bring Maxwell team members in to be consultants for my team. But then again, I started reflecting, and I still remember writing in my journal, what if I do it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? What if I become the internal consultant that is doing the training and the development for my people?
Nice.
And it's unusual, because now I'm managing a team and I'm actually very active in the development of them. So what we started doing is we did something called the leadership game. It takes about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and it's a Maxwell tool. And we're sitting around the table playing this game, and it's so insightful because people start to understand and learn about their teammates, things that they'd never, you ask questions, basically a card game. And I still remember one of the members say, everybody in the company is going to play this game, right? And we had 75,000 people in our company. And I'm like, well, right now we're the only ones that are going to play this game, but maybe it'll take off. And then we started doing book studies. And I came short of calling them book clubs because that tends to get a little soft. So we started reading leadership books. So every week I would have a staff meeting at 6 a.m. because I had people all around the globe. Every Thursday morning at 6 a.m. we would have a staff meeting. And I started alternating staff meeting one week, book study the next. And we did that for 3 years. I think we read 8 books together, but it was more about, it wasn't just reading the books. It was amazing conversations and people actually got vulnerable. People started communicating, people started interacting. And one of the things that I love to tell is that over that 3 years that I was in that role, you think about the quality department, what's your metrics? It's quality performance to your customers. We actually cut customer complaints 50% year over year. Now, you can't put all of that on my small team, but what my small team was doing was going to their team and then training them. And then they were going to their teams and training them. So they were moving throughout the organization and starting to create that culture of engagement where people actually started to get very interested and curious about how their behavior and performance affected the entire company.
I think it's real insightful because we've done something similar to that just recently in the organization that I'm in. And I was amazed. I actually went and some of my fellow workers had some conversations with them about how they express themselves in some of those meetings. And it was truly enlightening. And when I see with you, you just keep being drawn to developing people,
right?
Developing people.
And I think it's almost everything.
Yeah.
I built this with the Maxwell materials. I built an engagement model that I would take around the globe basically and train people. So in my last role, my last 3-year stint at TE, I was running their continuous improvement program. So that meant we were working with the plants on their processes and identifying waste and eliminating waste and, improving the way they deliver product to the customer. But at the same time, you have to have a culture of continuous improvement. So the leadership training that I did worked very well and it fit in. So I would make it fit. I developed the training and would go around as I traveled to see the plants and help with the processes. My team and I would also do leadership training. We'd pull in the plant manager and whoever they would let us bring in and talk to them about all of the traits of good leadership. But then we would also do exercises on, hey, how do we actually grow as individuals? What are we going to do for a daily win standpoint? What am I doing for my mind, my body, my soul every day? And then we create accountability teams inside of that. And then we would say, okay, how am I going to develop everybody and create this cycle of development, which then leads to engagement. And when you have engaged employees, you're unstoppable. If your employees are showing up every day and they want to be there, that's so valuable. And I think a lot of companies miss that, right?
That's one thing too. I want you to elaborate on a little bit more, the importance of that with a company. That's a game changer. That makes everything different. It raises the quality of your employees, your output, all of these different things. And that's what you're trying to accomplish.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. And so, you could tell, I don't know if you walk into a room and you can feel the mood.
Sure.
And that's sometimes a reflection of the culture. And my main message to leaders was always that your culture in your facility is a reflection of you.
Yeah.
So you might be able to look at an employee and say, hey, Lamar's not performing. That's your responsibility.
Wow.
Right?
That's
huge.
Like a lost art these days.
It is.
Nobody wants the.
And I love having people have that aha moment and
Yeah.
they go, just like I did with my job when I went, oh, that was mine. I did that.
Yeah.
I need leaders to look at themselves in the mirror and go, oh my goodness.
Right. And I don't feel like though that you're saying having those aha moments and then when they look at themselves, they're ashamed.
Right.
Like
No,
that is
absolutely
not what I feel like
absolutely not.
that this is at all. It's I acknowledge and then there is this pathway to betterment.
It's a learning
Yeah.
opportunity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
let's get to where you're at today.
So last year, Susan and I were talking about exit time. And for some reason, 2025 has always been a little bit of a buzz date. We weren't sure exactly why, but we were very prayerful about it and looking at opportunities and things started to line up. And so last April, May 2025, we made the decision that I was going to leave TE at the end of the year. So TE was very gracious. I told them in May, I'm going to take an early retirement, which their program, since you can see my gray hair, if your age plus your time of service added up to 65, you could take what was called an early retirement. So this is going to be perfect. And then I started my own company doing what I was doing inside TE, but allowing myself to own my calendar and do it 100% of the time.
Nice.
Because I think I was adding value at TE for both parts of my role, but I wasn't actually allowed, not that I wasn't allowed to, I wasn't able to do it all the time.
Right.
And now what I want to do is get out there and be able to do it all the time. So Fourth Figure essentially is a company that can work with leaders, small to mid-sized companies or large companies. It doesn't matter. And I do individual coaching. I love doing facilitation. I love doing training. That's a little bit of my niche. But when I come to a company, what I bring to them are several ways to get in, right? We could do what I mentioned earlier, the leadership game, and we can have the team sit around the table, get to know each other. And that can lead to further consulting or maybe broader training with their teams to understand how leadership and influence affect their performance. And then I also do DISC assessments, which we talked about before. So, the DISC assessments come in where maybe a company is struggling with communication and people don't understand, or they don't have that level of awareness of their own communication styles, and they don't understand how to adjust their communication styles and work with others. It all comes back to influence and relationships.
Yep.
And if you don't understand how your behavior and your influence affects your relationships, then you're going to get to that point where you're just telling people what to do. And that doesn't work for very long.
This is just me being curious, but when does a company know they have a problem?
So I think some of the best metrics for companies to look at is what's their attrition rate? Are they hitting their KPIs, right? Are they hitting their revenue numbers? Are they hitting their gross margin numbers? What are their scrap numbers look like? What do the customer complaints look like? And then also, what are their employees really saying? Because so many times employee surveys are used, and employee surveys are wonderful. They give you a point in time of data. But a lot of times the comments that come from the employees, there's a couple things that happen there. The employees probably don't really believe that it's anonymous, so they're going to be very guarded.
Very true.
And then as leaders, we read those and we go, oh, you know what? That's Lamar. He's just disgruntled. We don't really know who it is, but we just jump to a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we don't do enough about it. We don't actually look at the situation and say, what do I need to do as the leader to change this situation? Rather than at a webinar, at a newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because employees love getting newsletters.
Said no one
Sure.
ever.
Right?
Yeah,
How
no.
to not change a culture.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely not.
Tell people that they need to have a better culture.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. Doesn't work.
So you see the need in basically what I'm getting. You went so many places and you saw the pattern that this was happening. And you also started to realize through your own personal development
Right.
that you really had, I'll say this, purpose.
Right.
You found fulfillment in helping that change
Right.
to some degree.
Absolutely.
And so that leads you to where we're at today. And it's kind of cool. So tell us about this particular.
About the purpose factor.
Yes.
So
And
as
how-
I mentioned, I've been working with Maxwell Leadership since about 2018. And in December, the leader of Maxwell Leadership announced to all of us that they were going to bring in a couple who had started a company called The Purpose Company. So it's Brian and Gab Boucher, and they've been very successful coaches in their own right for years. But while they were working on their coaching, they kept noticing that something was missing. They also heard a theme of purpose. And so Brian started doing a lot of research and came up with an assessment that he always said it felt like there were 4 buckets. It felt like people need to understand, what's their natural advantage, right? Or and then the next one is what's their acquired skills? What have they learned throughout their career? And what's their pull passion, which is the word passion, but it really means what are the problems that they like to go solve?
Mm-hmm.
And then where's that strength that was developed through maybe things that happened to them as they've grown up or as they've developed through their career? How do they actually solve problems and show up? That's kind of that origin strength that they could maybe take a good or a traumatic situation and say, I'm going to turn that into something positive and use it. Not that the traumatic situation is that's never the blessing. The blessing is what you take away from it, right? That's what you turn it into after. So now we have this thing called a purpose factor assessment, which you can take. It takes about 20 minutes and you get a 46-page report that is going to give you essentially your purpose factor and your fulfillment factor. And the way we like to define purpose is bringing the best of what you have in the service of others so that you are fulfilled. right?
Yeah.
So it's this really wonderful, virtuous cycle.
Nice. And that leads to so many intuitive and I don't remember the word that I was going to say, but you're able to really help people take stock, leaders take stock of their people
Right.
as they take something like this. So
Yeah,
they're
so I
able
think
to have a clear picture.
a
Sorry.
clear picture from an individual standpoint. So you look at it from the individual in a company could get to the point where they understand their purpose, but then from a company standpoint, it's where how does my purpose align with the mission? Now you start adding value to a company. If you have an organization where everybody in the company understands their purpose, what fulfills them, and how they're using it for others, and it's now aligned with the company mission, this is where we start approaching unstoppable, right? And where we start seeing the metrics start to come through, and everybody's going, hey, what are they doing over there in Kernersville? Right? People start to notice because there's going to be change, right? If people are lined up to come work where you work because you're the leader and you're helping people find their purpose, you're helping them understand their alignment to the mission, and then get really engaged and develop themselves at work, right?
It's so very, very cool. So we actually, you enabled us to take the purpose,
assessment, right?
the assessment
Yes.
here. And we have the very front page of it, but we were going over our different styles just here. And it was so spot on. It was, crazy. And you're able to look at something on paper. I don't know what it's about when something's like in black and white and you feel like, oh my gosh, it knows me.
Right.
It's just a really cool feeling. And when you feel that relationship to what is being written, you're also open to learning whatever it has to say.
Right.
At least that's what I have
You
found.
find that you basically get that confirmation, right?
Yes.
And that's why when you go through the exercise, we say, hey, tell me about a fulfilling day. And then you get the confirmation in the report. You go, oh my goodness.
Right.
Something that I think fulfills me, it says it right here or something close, right?
Yes.
There's some relationship there. And then you get that trust in the report because it is very telling. Sometimes it's a little exposing, sometimes it's a little uncomfortable, but it's awareness that can't be bad, right? Because then you can react to it. And one of the areas I love sending people to is their blind spots.
Oh yeah, we did that.
I mean, we all learn about where we are from a natural advantage and acquired skills and pull passion, origin strength. Those are great. And hey, how do I do more of what fulfills me and less of what frustrates me? But when you can look at a report and understand your blind spots from each of those perspectives, that's very powerful.
Maybe it was on here. I don't remember. I was going to say what one of my blind spots were, just to.
I think it's on the second page of your. I may not have printed it out.
Oh, that's okay. I'll find it. But one of the things that for me, and we're not going to go through all these because this is definitely something that people need to go to, but was really enlightening. You kind of, there's this thing that says what most fulfills you. And I have about 7 things that was fulfilling. But beforehand, he was like, pick one. And I was just like frozen. Like I don't want to. But then I really identified very quickly. When you said pick one, I was able to really see, okay, this is number one. Yeah. One of mine was seeing the moment of understanding in others.
Right.
So that really meant something to me. And I don't know, when you see it and you feel it at the same time,
it's powerful.
It's so much. There's so much power in that.
Yeah.
And then you definitely are ready for the next thing, which is what most frustrates you. And then you look at it and you're like, oh man, that is absolutely true. And there may be some things I don't like about what frustrates me, but I'm willing to say, oh, okay, if that frustrates me, then how can I don't want to be frustrated.
Right.
Who wants to be frustrated?
That's right.
So if there's a fix to frustration and I'm now open, then I want to know what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And multiply that in a company where you have dozens and dozens or hundreds of employees. You have a bunch of them frustrated all the time. They're not feeling fulfilled. They're not accomplishing what is fulfilling in their life. You're going to have a problem. So this helps with that. So we can recognize. And then the goal is then as a leader, help them not only find their purpose, but be able to, once they get that figured out, to be able to use that to serve others within their organization.
Sure.
So, yeah.
But this test is just step one.
Absolutely, just step one.
Yeah.
This is now I'm aware,
Right.
more aware of who I am. And then we normally would move into, there's several ways we can look at it, but from a company standpoint, it could be that we do group coaching and work with the team to say, hey, what are our goals? What's the current reality? And how do we leverage the opportunities that we're finding inside our purpose factor to start moving in that direction?
Yeah. This is the part that fourth figure really is coming in, because
Right.
this is a wonderful assessment. But even though I read all of this, I needed you
Right.
today to ask the pertinent questions and to kind of break that down for each of us, Daniel, Lamar, and myself, to really, hey, and it made it more, it sharpened the arrow. Let me put it that
Yeah.
way.
And I think another thing too, at this table, we've heard many, many times, one of the game changing thing in a lot of entrepreneurs' life and business owners' life has been having a coach to help coach you through some of these things and make you aware of things that are going on in your life, in your business, and then help give you direction. And that's exactly what this does. You're a coach and you're helping individuals and businesses get themselves on track, get them going in the right direction.
That's right. And that's what I love about coaching, because coaching is not the same as mentoring. It's not the same as counseling. You know, I mentor people as well, but that's where people come in and say, hey, Dave, I want to learn from your experience. Tell me what you did. You know, and then a counselor is going to look back in the history and say, okay, let's dig up some problems and see if we can address those, which I think a lot of people need to do that so they can move forward on their purpose, which is great. But then a coach really looks at their client and says, you know, I believe you have the answer inside of you, and we're going to work together so that I can extract that from you. So you're going to be much more receptive to an answer that you come up with versus me going, hey, this is what you should do, Audra.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad I looked at your report.
Yeah.
Here's your prescription, right?
Yeah.
Here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, I hired a coach and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But if we have a conversation and then I start asking you activation type questions, okay, what are your goals? What do you really want from company A, right? Where's the current reality? What's that gap? And then where are the opportunities, and what are you going to do tomorrow? What can we do today? What are some of the things that we can actually pull together and put into place right now? And then start to understand what's holding you back. And that's where the purpose factor actually adds some value as well, because so many times we as humans make decisions based on fear. And so a big part of the purpose factor assessment is to help you use your purpose, as the lens to make decisions, right? So we've used our programming from our childhood, which served us very well up until the time we're about 20, to make decisions. But after we're 20, we really need to reprogram ourselves and start making better decisions. Unfortunately, most of the time we don't, and myself included, right? We still unconsciously revert to some fear. Maybe it leads to procrastination, or we're afraid of being rejected, not belonging, all those things that creep into our mind and the self-talk. And I better not say anything. But if you can take that and say, what's my purpose? And then look at the opportunity in the decision and say, does this align with my purpose? And then it goes from I should do this, but I'm afraid, to I must do this because it helps me fulfill my purpose. And then I'm working in the service of others, and then I get fulfilled. So it's a wonderful virtuous cycle.
And it's worth it then.
And it's worth
the work.
Yes. And I love that you said worth it. That's
Yeah.
great, yeah.
So I think maybe the other thing we need to do in this society is, when everybody turns 20, that they're supposed to take this. It's a standardized test for everyone.
Think of the power. And that is, Brian and Gab's mission is to have 1 billion people take the purpose factor and find their purpose, I should say.
And right? I saw that in the mission statement, I thought was great, because to help 1 billion people discover their exact purpose. Why? Because we believe powerful things happen when you have clarity about who you are and how you can help others. And
amazing,
the caveat on that is this: decisions become easier, relationships become more meaningful, work becomes more fulfilling. Oh my word. That's like, And I don't want to be one of these people that's just sad. I'll go punch a clock and I'm just satisfied. I'd be satisfied with that. I want to have an impact.
Absolutely.
I want to help others.
Yeah.
I want to leave a legacy,
Right.
type of thing. And that's what I love about this, because it helps you see that in your own life.
Yeah. I love that you found that without talking to me, because now you understand the excitement level that I had when I sat in the webinar in December and ran downstairs to Susan going, I'm signing up for Purpose Factor to become a licensed facilitator. This is going to be a game changer.
And to add to that too, David, I thought was great was the goals of this, to identify how to give the best of what you have in life and work, the best you have. And I want to be the best. I know you want to be the best. And that's what we want to accomplish. Then how to give your best. This was cool, in every moment.
Yeah.
To live in the moment, be your best in the moment.
Right.
I think it's
It's
so
powerful.
important. And it brings, I'm talking here because I was excited about seeing this.
Go for it.
This is why it makes a difference, because it brings joy and fulfillment. It provides clarity and certainty and opens the door to legacy and meaning.
Yeah.
So I saw that. And that really is, I mean, the older I get, that to me is really what life is all about.
Absolutely.
But what would it have been like if you knew that when you were younger?
Oh, my word, if I would have listened to it. So I think that's also a great point, Audra, is to allow yourself to go through something like this, because it's revealing to you, but also to have a coach or somebody that you can be honest with and be vulnerable with, where you give them permission to your blind spots. If you see something in me that, it has to be a trustworthy person. It's going to be honest with you and wants the best for you.
Yeah.
To be vulnerable enough and give them permission to help me become a better person.
And you have to have that relationship to have the trust for someone to be willing to be vulnerable and tell you what's really going on.
Yeah.
Right? And that Brian, he loves bringing it up, but he's like, there should be somebody crying in one of our assessments, right? It's like, we're having a meeting. Somebody needs to cry. I mean, somebody's going to cry, right? The first time I shared some of my story in our cohort, it's like, okay, I'm bawling like a little baby, and they're going, it's okay. I'm like, it's kind of like freeing, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're going, oh my goodness, I'm in a room of 10 people that I can trust and get this vulnerable, but then really start to resurface some things that need to be fixed.
Well, I think that the culture that is the workforce today, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think the culture period in the world is everybody is just punching the clock, just getting by. There doesn't seem to be the resources of discipleship or mentoring from a lot of people, no matter the socioeconomic way that they grew up. It's not a standard the way it was when I was younger, to put yourself next to people who are older, wiser, and that really wanted to pour into you. Everybody's just trying to make it through the day and keep their head above water, that it's like, oh, I'm going to, in my opinion, just push any of these feelings because I just got to show up and do this to get paid or to get through life.
Get to Friday.
Yeah, get to Friday.
Right.
And that's never going to lead to excellence.
That's right. Or fulfillment.
No.
You're going to be frustrated all the time.
Yeah. And I think that we can agree that's what we're seeing in the culture of today.
Right. Yeah. And your workers at a job, or your team members, or whatever you want to call them, if they're frustrated all the time, they're going to do as little as they can.
Yeah.
That's right.
To get by. But somebody who works at a place that has the right kind of culture, that is interested in bringing out the very best in their people and in their teams, those people are going to contribute to that company, to the mission of that business. They're going to be loyal to their leadership, and they're going to want to help others around them. It's a win-win thing.
Sure.
That's right.
And you see it. I've seen it through my lifetime, through different places where I've worked or been exposed to. That's the game changer.
Yeah. I work with a couple of young engineers as their coach, and some of them have had this, and some of them I was working with them before I had this. So I'm going to circle back and have them do it. Did I just say circle back? That's a terrible word, right?
Right.
It's just kind of like corporate speak, right? I always remind them, if I would have had a coach, or if I would have had someone offer me a coach when I was 25 or 26, like, I don't know if I would have known enough to accept it,
Mm-hmm.
but I wish I had a coach when I was 25.
Sure.
Because I learned the hard way. And that's a great way to learn. We can do it as long as you're willing to keep learning.
Yeah.
You're eventually going to get farther, but that's the problem, is that so many of us start to feel defeated.
Yeah.
And then we just lose that drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how business-wise, entrepreneurial-wise, what is your approach to this business? Like how are you getting clients and doing all those kinds of things?
Yeah. So,
Or what's your goals? You don't have to tell me all the inside, but how are you taking the bull by the horns, I guess?
So basically, when I left TE in December, I started networking, and I've traveled the world on someone else's dime for decades, and I loved it. It was wonderful, but I'm trying to stay a little bit local. The great thing now is I can do things through Zoom or Teams, so I don't have to travel. I can travel, and I'm willing to travel. But right now, I'm kind of hitting the Triad area. I'm hitting a lot of the chambers of commerce. I've just joined the Rotary in Greensboro. So I'm getting to know business leaders, and then letting them get to know me and to see what I'm bringing to the area. And then I do have a pretty extensive network on LinkedIn already. And I've been doing videos. I started out 2.5 years ago doing motivational videos at work every day. I made a commitment to myself that I was going to do a 1-minute leadership video for a year.
That's so cool.
Every day.
I like that.
Yeah, about halfway in, I was going, what was I thinking? But Susan kept going, Dave, you said you're going to do this for a year. So I did it, at least on weekdays. I didn't do it on the weekends. But I recorded a video every day for a year, even if I was traveling. And people loved it. Yeah. I was posting it inside the company on our social media inside the company. And so sometimes 20 people would see it. Sometimes 10,000 people would see it. Just depend if it hit. And then I started going, I don't want to do this for another year. It really was starting to become distracting for me. But I do want to continue doing videos. So I started doing what I call the Wednesday wake-up call. And I do a video every Wednesday on LinkedIn. I've been doing it for over 2 years now. And I've wanted to stop many times. And my wonderful wife goes, David, people like those videos. I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And then sure enough, I'll post a video and someone will oh my goodness, they'll send me a private message. I needed that today. Thank you so much. So I'm like,
the
okay,
moral of the story
I just need the one, right? I needed the one.
The moral is listen to your wife.
Listen. Oh, always. That's always good advice, right?
Right.
She is a great coach. Believe me. She's helped me with my public speaking. She's helped me with accountability.
She's awesome. She's been here, everybody, on the small. She has a small business.
She's
of
amazing.
Her own. Yes.
So I remind myself always, because there's some days where I go, I just don't feel like recording a video, but it's not about me anymore. Right.
Yeah.
It's about, I'm providing value to people and enough people. So it varies from week to week. Sometimes now 1,000 people will see it. Sometimes 3,000 people will see it. Sometimes people will comment. I don't know if you've noticed, but you get on social media, if you post something, you can see how many people see it, but the percentage of people who react to it or comment, it drops like a rock, right? So if 1,000 people see it, maybe 20 people like it, and maybe one person comments.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe somebody sends you a DM. But then what's fulfilling for me is I'll be out at a networking event and someone will say, hey, I saw your video. Well, I had no idea.
Right.
Or I've even had family members, I watch your videos every week. I'm like, really? I had no idea, because you don't like them. You don't.
Yeah.
So you have to keep that.
Yeah. There's no interaction, but it doesn't mean
they're not watching.
There's impact.
There's impact.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
and
impact.
I think it's so good too that you're giving. I think it's a great way to give, to business leaders, to other people. That it's just great to be able to do that. It brings a lot of value to the table. I think what I want to ask is, we're in the Piedmont Triad region. This is it's an amazing part of North Carolina. There's a lot of activity going on in our state and even within this region. what would you like to see with your business now and where we are now in the way of impacting all of it?
Wow. So what a great question. So if you think about the opportunity in this area, there are a lot of companies coming here because of the geographic location. It's great for transit and, moving parts. It's great because it's got a good workforce. The taxes are, I think, okay for businesses to move in here. But if you think about reasons why companies come, they want employees who are going to be productive, engaged, and show up. So if we can actually work with those companies as they come here, or maybe ones that want to stay, and help them create that culture inside their company where people actually understand their purpose and now they're aligned with the company mission. Because one of the things, and we were in a conversation last week with Brian and Gab, the question came up, well, what if we have people find their purpose and they leave? That's never been the intention of this assessment. And actually, I think the opposite is going to happen. If you get a team of people around a table or throughout the company, and they all start to learn where they land in the company and what actually fulfills them, and then their job starts to fulfill them, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
And they're gonna start showing up early, right, and with a big smile on their face, right, and pack the lunch and be there. Now,
I think there's a good lesson in that though too, because I think that's a great point you brought up, because I thought about that, but also too, you want people in the right place.
Absolutely.
And if they're not happy in that, they'd be more satisfied. To me, caring about somebody, I want them to be in a place where they feel fulfilled, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can fill that position with somebody who does fit that.
Yeah, I think it's the old adage of the square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it from a purpose factor standpoint, each of the 4 characteristics can be directional for you as a person and also for a leader. It's like before our conversation, before we started recording, I was asking you what most frustrated you. You told me. And then when you started looking at the 3 of you and your assessments, you can see where you're all bringing value to this organization, but you can also see where there's gaps.
Yeah.
There's gaps in what's driving the frustration because it's not your purpose.
Exactly.
Right. Without getting too specific, but it's like, hey, when I look at this from a team perspective, we have a team mapping profile so that a leader could say, okay, let's have everybody take the purpose factor and then place them inside the buckets and see where they fall. And do I have diversity of purpose? Now, how wonderful is that? When you think about, there's a lot of conversation about diversity. We need background diversity. We need all kinds of thought diversity. Diversity of purpose could be really powerful, because if I'm aligned with my purpose, I'm aligned with the company purpose and the company mission, and I fit and I know where I fit in that company, then I'm valuable and I'm unstoppable.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I can say just for us, thank you so much, because especially the time that we spent before we got on camera is very valuable. And if I can see that value, I can say with assurance that any company, no matter how big or small or personal, use needs to contact you, and I don't see that there's anything you can't do.
Well, I will certainly be there to help them, right? And if I can't help them, I'll let them know, but I certainly would like to have a conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So I'm available on email, so it's just david@fourthfigure.com. I have a LinkedIn page that's very active as well, and I have a website that's fourthfigure.com. So
awesome.
And that's the number 4, fourth figure.
We'll put that on the screen so everybody can know. And this is something you want to get on right away. Why would you want to go one more day and not know your purpose?
Not know your purpose.
Exactly.
Right.
Why would we want to do that, Lamar?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I need to know.
I know.
And I found out.
I did too. So yes.
And now I know your purpose.
Oh no. We did share, didn't we?
Yes.
We did share. So everybody, call Dave.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the conversation. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Enjoyed it very
Absolutely.
much.
And if you or anyone you know wants to be on the Small Business Leaders podcast and wants to talk about what they do and bring to our wonderful world and community, we would love to have you on the podcast. Just
Absolutely.
contact us at Legacy Podcast Studio, and you can see this podcast or hear this podcast on all the things: YouTube, not LinkedIn,
YouTube, Spotify,
Apple, all the things.
We're all over.
So just push it everywhere, Dave.
I'll do it. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we will see you next time when we look forward to it. Thanks for joining us.